The great meeting hall of the Galactic Confederation had never seen such fear. Hundreds of alien species sat in their floating chairs, their voices creating a chorus of worry and panic. Some had fur, others had scales, and many had skin that glowed in different colors. But today, all of them shared the same look of terror in their eyes. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the center of the hall. She was an Ilani, a species known for their calm nature and peaceful ways. Her blue skin was now pale with fear, and her forearms shook as she held the datapad. She had been chosen to deliver the worst news the galaxy had ever heard. "Fellow beings," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "the harvester machines have taken another system. The Centauri colonies are gone. All 12 billion inhabitants were converted to fuel in less than 2 days." A wave of horrified sounds filled the hall. Some aliens clicked their mandibles in distress. Others made low humming noises of grief. The harvester machines had been unstoppable for 3 years now. They appeared from nowhere, consumed everything living, and used that organic matter to build more of themselves. "How many systems have we lost now?" asked General Vorthok, a large reptilian creature whose species had once been famous for their military might. Even he sounded defeated. 47 complete systems, Zethkri replied. Over 200 billion lives. Our best military forces cannot stop them. Every weapon we use, they adapt to within hours. Our shields become useless. Our ships are turned into scrap metal. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. The Confederation's peaceful nature had made them weak. For thousands of years, they had solved problems through discussion and trade. War was something they read about in old history books. But the harvesters did not want to talk. They only wanted to consume. "What about the quantum torpedoes from the Nexus Empire?" someone called out. "Useless after the first attack, General," Vorthok replied sadly. "The machines learned to absorb the energy and make themselves stronger. The psychic barriers from the mind speakers, the harvesters have no minds to affect. They are pure machine intelligence, connected as one." Zethkri watched as hope drained from every face in the room. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy were helpless against these metal creatures. But she had one last option. One terrible, desperate choice that made her stomach twist with fear. "There is one species we have not contacted," she said slowly. The hall became so quiet that even the air recycling systems seemed loud. Everyone knew which species she meant. "The one they all feared to mention, the humans," whispered Elder Mortis. "An ancient being whose people had lived for thousands of years. The Deathworlders, the very word made everyone uncomfortable. Deathworlders were species that came from planets so dangerous that most aliens could not even visit them. Their homeworlds were filled with deadly weather, poisonous plants, and creatures that existed only to kill. Most species in the galaxy had evolved on safe, peaceful worlds where the biggest danger was a mild storm. But humans came from Earth, a planet that the Confederation had classified as a Class 12. Wow. It was a place where the weather could kill with extreme heat or freezing cold, where the ground itself could shake and split open, where the very air could become poisoned during something called volcanic eruptions. The oceans were filled with monsters, the land crawled with predators, and even the tiny bacteria could cause death. Yet somehow, humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had become the top predator on their own planet. "We have reports about humans," continued Zethkri, reading from her datapad with shaking hands. "They have been in space for only 200 years, but they have already colonized 63 worlds, not peaceful garden worlds like ours. They choose planets that other species consider impossible to live on." "What else do the reports say?" asked General Vorthok, though he looked like he did not really want to know. "They fight wars among themselves for practice. They create weapons that are designed to cause maximum suffering. They have something called martial arts, which is the science of hurting others with bare hands. Their entertainment includes watching others fight until someone gets hurt." The aliens in the hall began to whisper among themselves. Some suggested that maybe dying to the harvesters would be better than asking humans for help. "But the most disturbing thing," Zethkri continued, "is that they seem to enjoy danger. Our spies report that humans do something called extreme sports, where they put themselves in deadly situations for fun. They jump from high places with only a piece of cloth to save them. They climb mountains that could kill them. They swim with creatures that could eat them. Elder Mortis spoke in his ancient voice. What makes you think these violent creatures would help us? What could we possibly offer them? Zethkri was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up with desperate eyes. We offer them the greatest gift their species could want. We offer them a war. The hall erupted in shocked voices. The idea was terrifying, but it was also their only hope. The humans had been fighting small conflicts on border worlds, she explained. But the harvesters would give them something I've never had before. An enemy that fights back with everything it has. An enemy that adapts and becomes stronger. An enemy that threatens the entire galaxy. And if they succeed in helping us, asked someone from the back of the hall. Zethkri did not answer immediately. She was thinking about what might happen if they unleashed humans on the galaxy. If creatures who had turned their nightmare world into a paradise could do the same to an enemy like the harvesters, then we pray to all our gods that they remember we were the ones who asked for their help, she finally said. Because after they finish with the harvesters, nothing in this galaxy will ever be the same again. The vote was held in silence. One by one, every species raised their hand in agreement. They would contact the humans. They would ask the Deathworlders for help. They had no choice. The message was sent that very day, was simple and desperate. The Galactic Confederation requests immediate military assistance against an extinctional-level threat. All resources and authority will be provided. Please help us.
How?
The human response came back within hours. It was even simpler. We are coming. And somewhere in the dark space between the stars, human ships began to move toward the center of the galaxy. Ships built for war, carrying creatures who had spent their entire evolution learning how to survive by fighting. The Confederation had asked for help. What they were about to receive was something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The human ships arrived at the Confederation border 3 days after the distress call. The alien fleet commanders who came to greet them immediately regretted their decision to ask for help. The human vessels looked nothing like Confederation ships. Where alien ships were smooth and beautiful, built for exploration and trade, human ships were covered in weapons. Massive cannons stuck out from every surface. Missile tubes lined the holes like angry metal teeth. Even the smallest human fighter craft carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon captain. Sarah Chen stepped off the lead ship, wearing something the aliens had never seen before. She called it battle armor, but it looked more like a mechanical monster. The black metal suit made her twice as tall as normal humans, and red lights glowed where her eyes should be. When she walked, each step left small cracks in the metal floor of the docking bay. I am Captain Chen of the Human Defense Force, she announced in a voice that sounded like grinding metal through her suit's speakers. We received your call for help. Show us the enemy. Ambassador Zethkri had prepared a long speech about cooperation and peaceful methods. She forgot all of it when she saw Captain Chen. The human woman radiated danger like heat from a fire. Even through the mechanical suit, Zethkri could sense something that made her survival instincts scream warnings. Captain Chen Zethkri began nervously. We are grateful for your response. However, I think you should understand that the harvesters are unlike any enemy you have faced. They learn from every attack. They adapt to every weapon. Perhaps we should discuss strategy and show us the enemy, Captain Chen repeated. Her voice had not changed, but somehow it felt like a threat. General Vorthok stepped forward. His reptilian species had once been warriors, and he recognized a predator when he saw one. The nearest harvester fleet is attacking the Bellows system. It is 3 light years from here. Good, said Captain Chen. She turned to one of her officers, a man who looked calm despite being surrounded by nervous aliens. Commander Torres, take the science team to observe. Full sensor sweep. I want to know everything about these machines in 6 hours. 6 hours? Zethkri gasped. Captain, with respect, our best scientists have studied the harvesters for 3 years. 6 hours is not enough time to captain. Chen turned her red glowing eyes toward the Alani ambassador. 6 hours is plenty of time to watch something die. The human ships moved toward the bellows system with frightening speed. Confederation vessels had to push their engines beyond safe limits just to keep up. When they arrived, they found the harvesters doing what they always did. The mechanical swarm was consuming everything. The harvesters looked like a combination of insect and machine. Each one was the size of a building, with dozens of arms that ended in different tools. Some arms cut metal, others gathered organic matter, and still others worked to build new harvesters from the collected materials. They moved like a hive of intelligent ants working together perfectly. Remarkable, said Dr. Marcus Webb, the human science officer. He was watching the destruction through his ship's sensors with what seemed like excitement rather than horror. They consume biological matter to fuel reproduction, but they prioritize efficiency over redundancy. Classic evolutionary optimization, Dr. Webb said Zethkri through the communication system. Those machines have just destroyed 12 billion lives. How can you sound so calm? Dr. Webb looked at her through the video screen. His smile was not comforting. Because I am looking at the solution to our problem. These machines are very smart, but they made one mistake. They never learned to fight something that thinks like a human. The Confederation officers watched in amazement as human ships moved into the battle zone. But instead of attacking the harvesters, they seemed to be studying them. Human fighters flew dangerous patterns around the mechanical swarm, letting the harvesters shoot at them while recording everything. What are they doing? Asked General Vorthok. They are letting the enemy attack them. They are learning, replied Captain Chen. Humans do not fight the same enemy twice. We study, we adapt, and then we win. For 6 hours, human ships danced around the harvester fleet like insects around a light. The harvesters fired every weapon they had, trying to destroy the strange new ships. But the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually planned to avoid every attack. Meanwhile, Dr. Webb and his team dissected everything. They captured harvester drones that had been separated from the main group. They analyzed the communication signals between the machines. They studied how the harvesters shared information and made decisions. Fascinating, Dr. Webb said as he examined a captured harvester unit. They use a shared consciousness network. Every unit knows what every other unit learns. That is why they adapt so quickly to new weapons. Yes, said Zethkri sadly. That is why nothing works against them. They share all knowledge instantly. Doctor? Webb smiled again, and this time, even General Vorthok felt uncomfortable. That is not a strength. That is their greatest weakness. How can instant knowledge sharing be a weakness? Asked Zethkri. Because, Dr. Webb replied while connecting wires to the captured harvester's brain. If they share everything, then they will also share anything we want them to share, including things that might hurt them. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system. Dr. Webb, how long until you have a solution? Give me 12 more hours, Captain. I need to understand their biological fuel systems. You have 6 hours, Captain Chen replied. The Confederation leaders are getting nervous about our methods. Dr. Webb looked at the captured harvester, and his smile became wider. 6 hours is plenty of time, especially since I just remembered something interesting about Earth biology. What is that? Asked Zethkri. On Earth, we have something called viruses. They are tiny living things that invade other living things and change them from the inside. Most species in the galaxy never developed viruses because their home worlds were too safe. General Vorthok felt a chill run down his spine. What are you planning to do? Dr. Webb held up a small container filled with what looked like ordinary biological matter. I am going to give the harvesters exactly what they want, organic fuel, for their reproduction systems. Except this organic fuel has been modified with Earth viruses that have been changed to work on machine systems instead of biological ones. You are going to poison them? Asked Zethkri. Better than poison, Dr. Webb replied. I am going to give them a disease that spreads through their shared consciousness, disease that will make them forget how to adapt, disease that will turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Captain Chen's voice cut through the conversation. All ships, prepare for Phase 2. We are going to feed the harvesters, and they are going to thank us for it right up until they die. The Confederation officers looked at each other with growing horror. They had asked for help against a terrible enemy. What they were getting was something that thought like the enemy, but fought like a nightmare. The humans were not just going to defeat the harvesters. They were going to destroy them in a way that was both brilliant and terrifying. They seemed to be enjoying every moment of it. Sechkri whispered a prayer. To her ancestors, she had begun to suspect that saving the galaxy might not be worth the price they were about to pay. Dr. Webb worked through the night like a man possessed. The laboratory ship buzzed with activity as dozens of human scientists created something the galaxy had never seen before. He called it Project Trojan Gift, and the name made the Confederation. Observers very nervous. What exactly are you putting into that biological matter? Asked Sechkri. She watched through a protective window as humans in special suits mixed chemicals that glowed in dangerous colors. Earth viruses, Dr. Webb replied cheerfully, as if he were discussing the weather. But not just any viruses. We have modified them to attack silicon-based computer systems instead of organic cells. General Vorthok studied the readouts on his scanner. Those energy signatures look highly unstable. Are you sure this is safe? Dr. Webb laughed, and the sound made everyone in the room step back. Safe, General. We are about to poison an entire species of machines with diseases that do not exist anywhere else in the universe. Safe is not really the goal here. The biological matter in the containers looked ordinary. It appeared to be the same organic fuel that the harvesters had been consuming from destroyed worlds. But hidden inside were millions of tiny synthetic viruses, each one designed to spread through the harvester network and cause chaos. How do these viruses work? Asked Sechkri, though part of her did not want to know the answer. Simple, said Dr. Webb, holding up a small sample. The harvesters consume organic matter and break it down for energy. Our viruses look like normal proteins to their scanners, so they will eat them without hesitation. Once inside their systems, the viruses will begin rewriting their programming. Rewriting their programming to do what? Dr. Webb smiled in a way that made Sechkri wish she had never asked. To forget how to adapt, to share false information with other harvesters, to believe that their weapons are working when they are not, and most importantly, to crave more of our special biological matter. Captain Chen entered the laboratory wearing her terrifying armor. Dr. Webb, status report. Ready for deployment, Captain? We have prepared enough infected biological matter to bait 3 harvester fleets. Once they consume it and share the virus through their network, the infection will spread to every harvester in the galaxy within 48 hours. Excellent, said Captain Chen. Begin deployment immediately. The humans began their plan with military precision that frightened the watching aliens. Human ships approached harvester fleets and deployed the infected biological matter in what looked like supply drops. To the harvesters, it appeared that the humans were abandoning resources and fleeing. The first harvester scout ships found the biological matter within minutes. Their sensors detected nothing unusual. It looked, smelled, and tested exactly like the organic fuel they had been consuming from conquered worlds. The scouts immediately began breaking down the matter and feeding it into their systems. Phase 1 complete, reported Commander Torres from his ship. The scouts are consuming the bait and sharing the energy with their fleet through direct connection. Dr. Webb watched his instruments with excitement. Virus transfer confirmed. The infection is spreading through their local network now, but the humans were not finished. While the harvesters consumed the biological matter, human ships began broadcasting something even more disturbing across all communication frequencies. The sounds were like nothing the Confederation had ever heard. What is that noise? Asked General Vorthok, covering his ears. Psychological warfare, Captain Chen replied calmly. We are broadcasting sounds from Earth, screaming winds, volcanic eruptions, predator calls, and storm systems. We are also including human war cries and battle songs. Why would you broadcast such horrible sounds? Because the harvesters process all information they receive. These sounds will confuse their pattern recognition systems and make them waste processing power trying to understand threats that do not exist. The alien observers watched in amazement as the human plan unfolded. The infected harvesters began showing signs of malfunction within hours. Their movement patterns became erratic. Their communication with other units became confused. Some began attacking their own allies. "It is working," whispered Zethkri. "The viruses are actually working." But Dr. Webb was not satisfied with simple malfunction. He had prepared a second phase that was even more clever. The viruses had been programmed to make the harvesters crave more biological matter, specifically the type that humans were providing. "Watch this," said Dr. Webb, as he deployed the second wave of infected material. "The harvesters are now actively seeking our biological matter. They believe they need it to function properly." The results were immediate and terrifying. Harvester fleets began abandoning their current targets and moving toward human supply drops. They fought each other for access to the infected biological matter. Their shared consciousness network, once their greatest strength, became the method of their destruction as the virus spread faster than they could adapt. "My gods," said General Vorthok, "they are consuming the very thing that is destroying them, and they cannot stop." Captain Chen nodded with satisfaction. "That is the beauty of fighting an enemy that thinks it is smarter than you. Their intelligence becomes their weakness when you feed them information that hurts them." The virus spread through the harvester network like wildfire. Within 12 hours, harvester fleets across 3 star systems were showing signs of infection. Hours. The entire harvester species was experiencing system failures, but the humans had included one more surprise in their virus. As the harvesters consumed more infected matter, they began broadcasting their own location data to human forces. The virus made them believe they were calling for reinforcements, but they were actually calling human hunters to their position. "Harvester fleets are now visible on our sensors," reported Commander Torres. "They are broadcasting their locations on all frequencies." "Perfect," said Captain Chen. "Begin Phase 3. Hunter-killer operations." Human ships began moving throughout the galaxy like wolves hunting prey. They followed the signals that the infected harvesters were broadcasting and systematically destroyed every fleet they found. The harvesters tried to fight back, but their weapons no longer worked properly. The virus had corrupted their targeting systems and made their shields useless. "This is incredible," said Zethkri, watching the tactical displays. "You've turned their own biology against them." Dr. Webb corrected her with a smile that was becoming more disturbing each time she saw it. "We have not just turned their biology against them. We have turned their intelligence, their communication, their unity, and their survival instincts against them. Everything that made them strong now makes them weak." The Confederation observers began to understand something that made them very uncomfortable. The humans had not just created a weapon to defeat the harvesters. They had created a method of warfare that could be used against any species in the galaxy. "Captain Chen," said Zethkri carefully, "what happens to these viruses after the harvesters are destroyed?" Captain Chen turned her glowing red eyes toward the alien ambassador. "That depends on whether anyone else in the galaxy decides to become our enemy." The threat was clear, even though it was not spoken directly. The humans had saved the galaxy from the harvesters, but they had also demonstrated a type of warfare that was beyond anything the Confederation had imagined. They could poison an enemy's very thoughts and turn their strengths into weaknesses. As harvester fleets continued to fall across the galaxy, the aliens began to realize that they had solved one problem by creating a much larger one. The harvesters had been a threat to life in the galaxy, but humans were a threat to everything that lived or thought or existed, and they seemed to be enjoying themselves far too much. 3 weeks after the virus deployment, the Confederation leadership thought the war was over. Harvester fleets across the galaxy had stopped moving. Their communications had gone silent. Most alien species began celebrating what they believed was their salvation. The humans had different ideas about what victory meant. "Status report," Captain Chen demanded as she entered the command center. Her armor made loud mechanical sounds with each step, and several alien officers moved away. From her path, Harvester resistance has collapsed in all major sectors, reported Commander Torres. 96% of their fleets are no longer operational. The remaining 4% are scattered across the Outer Rim territories. Ambassador Zethkri stepped forward with relief clear in her voice. Captain Chen, this is wonderful news. The threat is over. Your species has saved us all. We can begin peace negotiations, Captain Chen interrupted. Her red glowing eyes turned toward the alien ambassador. Ambassador, I think you misunderstood our mission. What do you mean? Asked Zethkri. Though a cold feeling was growing in her stomach, Captain Chen activated a holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of surviving Harvester units. There were still hundreds of them scattered across dozens of star systems. Our mission is not to stop the Harvesters, Captain Chen explained in her mechanical voice. Our mission is to eliminate them completely. Every last unit must be destroyed. General Vorthok looked at the display with confusion. But Captain, these remaining units pose no threat. They are isolated and damaged. They cannot rebuild their forces. Dr. Webb laughed from his position at the science station. General, you are thinking like prey. Humans think like predators. We do not leave wounded enemies alive to recover and attack again later. But they cannot attack again, insisted Zethkri. The virus has destroyed their ability to adapt and reproduce. They are dying. Dying is not dead, Captain Chen replied. And not dead means still dangerous. The human fleet began what they called Operation Cleanup. Human ships spread across the galaxy in hunting packs, tracking down every remaining Harvester unit no matter how small or damaged. They used sensors that could detect mechanical signatures from impossible distances. They followed energy trails that were weeks old. They hunted with patience that frightened the watching aliens. This is unnecessary, protested Elder Mortis. During an emergency council session, the humans have already won. Why do they continue this slaughter? Captain Chen attended the meeting via hologram, her armored form towering over the seated aliens, because winning a battle is not the same as winning a war. Wars end when the enemy no longer exists. But surely some mercy is appropriate, suggested Zethkri. These remaining Harvesters are no longer a threat to anyone. Dr. Webb appeared on the hologram next to Captain Chen. His smile had become permanently fixed on his face, and it no longer looked human. Ambassador, mercy is what you show to enemies who surrender. Machines do not surrender. They only stop working when you break them completely. The Alien Council watched in growing horror as human hunting packs systematically destroyed every trace of Harvester presence in the galaxy. But the humans did not stop at killing the remaining machines. They began destroying Harvester manufacturing, facilities that had been abandoned for months. They melted down Harvester construction materials. They even sterilized planets where Harvesters had operated, using weapons that burned the ground to prevent any possibility of contamination. What are you doing to those worlds? Asked General Vorthok, as he watched human ships firing energy beams. At empty planets? Pest control, replied Commander Torres. We are making sure that no Harvester technology remains functional. No spare parts, no backup systems, no data storage devices. Nothing that could be used to rebuild even a single unit. The thoroughness of human operations began to terrify the Confederation leadership more than the Harvesters ever had. Humans did not just destroy their enemies. They erased every trace that their enemies had ever existed. Captain Chen said, Zethkri, during another council meeting, your people have spent 6 months hunting scattered Harvester remnants. Surely this is excessive. There cannot be many left. Captain Chen brought up the galactic display again. The red dots representing Harvester units had decreased dramatically, but dozens still remained. 43 units confirmed operational. 67 unit status unknown, but possibly functional. 8 manufacturing sites with unclear decontamination status. But these numbers are so small compared to the original threat, protested Elder Mortis. Small threats become large threats if you ignore them, Captain Chen replied. Humans learned this lesson millions of years ago when we were still hunting animals on Earth. You do not leave a wounded predator alive, because it will remember that you hurt it. Dr. Webb added his own disturbing observation. The harvesters were created by someone. We still do not know who built them or why. Until we understand their origin, we cannot be certain that more will not appear. This revelation shocked the Alien Council into silence. In all their studies of the harvesters, they had never considered that the machines might have creators who were still alive somewhere. "You think someone might build more harvesters?" asked General Vorthok. "We think someone already built these harvesters," Dr. Webb replied. "And until we find out who and eliminate them as well, the threat is not over." The aliens began to understand the true scope of human thinking. Humans did not just solve immediate problems. They solved all possible future versions of those problems. They did not just win wars. They prevented future wars by making sure their enemies could never fight again. "How long will this hunting operation continue?" asked Cadet. Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, as if considering the question carefully. "Until we have achieved total sterilization of the harvester threat. 6 months? 1 year? 10 years? However long it takes. And after that? After that, we find whoever created the harvesters and have a conversation with them about their poor choice in weapons." The way Captain Chen said conversation made it clear that she was not planning to use words. Commander Torres brought up a new display showing human fleet movements. "All hunter-killer groups are reporting steady progress. Estimated time to complete sterilization is 8 to 12 months, assuming no additional harvester units are discovered." "What if you find the creators of the harvesters during this time?" asked Elder Mortis. Dr. Webb smiled his terrible smile. "Then we will solve 2 problems instead of 1. The Confederation leadership left that meeting with a new understanding of what they had unleashed on the galaxy. The humans were not just helping them win a war. Humans were demonstrating a type of warfare that left no room for mercy, negotiation, or survival. They had asked for salvation from the harvesters. What they had received was a species that treated genocide as a routine maintenance operation. And the humans seemed to think this was completely normal behavior. As Zethkri returned to her quarters, she wondered if the galaxy would have been safer if they had simply accepted extinction from the harvesters. At least the machines had only wanted to consume organic matter. The humans wanted to eliminate the very possibility that their enemies had ever existed. 11 months after the first virus deployment, Commander Torres made the announcement that the Confederation had both hoped for and dreaded. "Final harvester unit destroyed in the Kepler sector at 08:08 hours, he reported to the assembled alien leadership. Total enemy casualties, 100%. Harvester species status, extinct." The Great Council Hall fell silent. For the first time in 4 years, no harvester machines existed anywhere in the galaxy. The threat that had consumed 47 star systems and killed hundreds of billions was gone forever. But nobody celebrated, Captain. Chen stood before the alien leaders without her armor for the first time. She looked smaller than before, more human, but somehow this made her even more frightening. Without the mechanical suit, they could see her eyes clearly. They were the eyes of someone who had just finished a job and was already thinking about the next one. "Mission accomplished," she announced simply. "The harvester threat has been eliminated." Ambassador Zethkri tried to smile, but her face would not cooperate. "Captain Chen, we cannot thank you enough for what you have done. You have saved our entire civilization." Yes, Captain Chen agreed. "We have." The way she said it made everyone uncomfortable. There was no pride in her voice, no satisfaction. She spoke like someone who had just finished washing dishes or taking out garbage. "What are your plans now?" asked General Vorthok. "Will you be returning to human space?" Captain Chen looked at him with those terrible, calm eyes. "That depends on several factors, General." "What factors?" Dr. Webb stepped forward, carrying a datapad that made several aliens step backward when they saw it. "We have discovered who created the harvesters." The council hall erupted in shocked voices. Was information they had never expected to learn. "Who?" demanded Elder Mortis. "Who built those monsters?" "A species called the Architects," Dr. Webb replied. "They live in a galaxy approximately 12 million light-years from here. They created the harvesters as a tool for gathering organic matter to fuel their own expansion." 12 million light years, whispered Zethkri. "That is impossibly far away." "Not for humans. Captain Chen said. We have already sent scout ships to begin surveillance. The aliens stared at her in horror. You sent ships to another galaxy? Of course, Dr. Webb replied, as if this were obvious. We needed to confirm the location of the Harvester creators and assess their capabilities. But that is an act of war, protested General Vorthok. You cannot simply invade another galaxy. Captain Chen tilted her head slightly, like a predator studying prey. General, they sent machines to consume our galaxy. It was already an act of war. But the Harvesters are gone, said Zethkreed desperately. The threat is over. The immediate threat is over, Captain Chen corrected. But the source of the threat still exists. The architects could build more Harvesters at any time. So what are you planning to do? Asked Elder Mortis, though he looked like he did not want to know the answer. Dr. Webb smiled his terrible smile one last time. We are going to visit the architects and explain why building species-killing machines is a poor survival strategy. You mean you are going to destroy them too? Said Zethkreed quietly. If necessary, Captain Chen replied. We'd prefer to give them the opportunity to surrender first, and if they refuse, then we will solve the problem permanently. The alien council members looked at each other with growing panic. They had thought their nightmare was over, but it was just beginning. The humans had saved them from the Harvesters, but now they were planning to wage war across the entire universe. Captain Chen, said Elder Mortis carefully, surely there must be some other solution. Perhaps diplomacy, or Elder Mortis, Captain Chen interrupted. Let me ask you a question. If the architects build more Harvesters, will you be able to stop? Then we'll know. But if more Harvesters appear, will any species in this galaxy survive? Probably not, but then diplomacy has already failed. The architects chose violence when they built machines to consume entire civilizations. We are simply responding in the language they chose to speak. Commander Torres approached with a new report. Captain, the Advance Fleet reports arrival at the Architect home galaxy. Initial scans show a civilization of approximately 50 billion. Individuals spread across 300 star systems. Defenses? Asked Captain Chen. Minimal. They appear to rely entirely on their Harvester machines for protection. No significant military fleet detected. Captain Chen nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. Send them our standard surrender demand. What happens if they agree to surrender? Asked Zethkreed. Then they will dismantle their civilization under human supervision and relocate to a world we select for them, Dr. Webb replied. They will be monitored to ensure they never build weapons of mass destruction again. And if they refuse, then their species will join the Harvesters in extinction. Casual way Dr. Webb discussed genocide made several aliens feel sick. These humans talked about destroying entire civilizations the way others might discuss pest control. Captain Chen, said General Vorthok, I must ask, after you deal with the architects, what then? Will humans continue expanding across the universe, destroying anyone they consider a threat? Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful rather than threatening. General, humans have a saying. It is better to be feared than loved, but it is best to be both feared and respected. What does that mean for the rest of us? It means that as long as the species in this galaxy remain peaceful and do not threaten others, they have nothing to fear from humanity. We are not conquerors, we are problem solvers. But if someone does become a threat, Captain Chen's eyes became cold again. Then we will solve that problem too. The message was clear. Humans had appointed themselves as the guardians of the galaxy, whether anyone wanted them to or not. They would decide what constituted a threat, and they would eliminate those threats. With the same efficiency they had shown against the Harvesters, Ambassador. Zethkreed realized the terrible irony of their situation. They had been saved from extinction, but their saviors had become something far more dangerous than their original enemies. The Harvesters had been mindless machines following their programming. Humans were intelligent beings who chose to destroy their enemies completely. One more question, Captain Chen, said Zethkreed. How do we know that humans will not eventually decide that we are a threat? Captain Chen smiled, and for the first time it looked genuinely friendly. Ambassador, you were the ones who asked. For our help? You recognized a threat to the galaxy and called the most dangerous species you knew to eliminate it. That shows wisdom. But what if we had not called you? What if we had tried to handle the harvesters ourselves? Captain Chen's smile faded. Then you would all be dead now, and we would be cleaning up the mess anyway. But it would have taken longer, and we would have been less pleased with the situation. The council meeting ended with that chilling thought. The aliens had saved themselves by surrendering their freedom to humanity. They had avoided extinction by accepting permanent subjugation to a species that treated genocide as routine maintenance, as the human fleet prepared to leave for another galaxy to destroy the architects. The Confederation leadership created a new motto for their civilization. It was carved into the walls of every government building in letters that could be seen from space. Never forget. When you beg Deathworlders for help, they give you exactly what you ask for, and then they decide what you need next. The galaxy was safe, but it would never be free again. And somehow, that felt like exactly what they deserved for being too weak to save themselves.